Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 4 of the Tempest's Box, the show where we try and change the gameplay of survival Minecraft without using any mods, just command block stuff. And what you just witnessed was me trying to texture the growth aura block, and this block called the collector, which I showed off last episode. So this isn't actually called the growth aura, I was lying when I said that. It's actually called, I have forgotten the name. It's called the Botane Beamer. I just called it that because growth aura... Okay, I'm really bad at naming. Anyway, what it does is it grows crops, as you may expect. Not as powerful as the original growth aura one. So let's make it a little bit better. Let's give myself a mysterious crystal and we will see what that does to this block here. So, in it goes and boom, instant. Thanks to that mysterious crystal I placed in there. Let's go a step further and just add a few more volcanium crystals in there. Boom, 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 and ta-da! Awesome. Now if we were to just harvest all this, whatever, just chuck these everywhere, then the collector should hopefully pick it up. Just like I demonstrated last time, except that one kind of fell out. It's still a bit buggy, I need to fix all that. Alright, since I cannot get the collector working properly today, we're going to talk about the growth aura instead. The growth aura is also useful for things that are not crops, like that. So it turned everything here mossy, it turned the dirt into grass, and it turned the nether brick into red nether brick. And so, oh yeah, also crops include things like nether wart as well, so you can actually use it to your advantage instead of just using dispensers with bone meal attached to a skeleton farm. So I would say that this is actually better than a bone meal dispenser, in my opinion. The other minor change I made is that if this is full of tempite, then it will start to glow, but once it runs out of tempite, then it will stop glowing. And I shall demonstrate this by going scoreboard players set tempite stone, tempite to 5. And then if I just keep using this up, then as soon as it runs out, then it will lose its luscious glow. But as soon as I give it some amethyst to take from, then boom, the glow comes back as soon as I try and use it again, and these machines can start working again. This is long overdue, but I've decided to give the tempite glass a texture now. Not glass itself, just the tempite moving through the glass. I don't want to replace any blocks, remember. So I decided that I would just take the stained glass texture and just make it change color as it moves through the wires, and I think that looks very pretty. I hope you agree with me. Speaking of textures, I got a lot of feedback on this one. Someone pointed out that it looked a little bit like a camera, and now I can't unsee that, so I want to change the texture. Fortunately, 2 nice people have submitted textures that I can use, and so what we're going to do is we're going to vote on them. We're going to vote for what texture you guys like the best. So, this is mine, and when I click my fingers, it's going to change. Okay, so this one was submitted by Hooded Hooligan Lolex. What a name. And I like it. I think it suits the Tempest's Box kind of style, and just to compare, we're going to get a tempite container and just put that next to it, see how it compares, and I think those blend together quite nicely. My only criticism is that it probably looks a little bit too industrial, so if I were to change the texture, I would add just a little bit more noise and just make it look a little bit stonier. But anyway, let's take a look at the second submission, and here we have a submission by XX Javier 107XX DeviantArt user. These names, I like this submission. I think it's also got the same issue as being too industrious for the Tempest's Box, so if I were to use it, then yeah, I would probably make it more natural looking. But I really love the look of this, and I hope that I get to use one of these, because that would be awesome. Anyway, there's going to be a poll on the card on the top right of the screen. I want you all vote for which one is your favorite, and then we'll decide next episode who gets their submission into the Tempest Box. In fact, if I don't end up using one, I might just end up using it for another block, if it seems appropriate. We'll see when that happens. You just witnessed a demonstration of how the staffs are going to work in the latest update of the Tempest's box. You would have noticed a few things are different. So the Shatter Staff works very similar to how it always worked. The model I've kept because I think it's pretty timeless at the moment. And also, when you hit mobs, it launches them up just as they used to. Now the difference is I've given this staff a right click ability now. So if I right click, then it will actually shoot a fireball out of the staff and it will hit something. Now this is only possible due to the raycasting feature in 1.13. I'm sure you've heard of it, but if I use this symbol here, then I can actually just teleport in the direction I'm looking. And that is super powerful, and it allows for very accurate raycasting. So I can look right there, and it's pretty close, if not exact. The repulsion staff still almost works exactly the same as it used to. You right click, and it's actually the exact same commands as they were back in version 0.7. So that's its right click ability, but it also has a left click ability as well. So if you right click, it uses it on yourself, and if you left click, then it uses it on the mob that it's hitting. Now the captive staff almost works the same as well. You can hit the mob and it will capture them like that, and that's very useful if you want a mob to either stop bothering you or if you just want to legitimately catch it. Now I'm right clicking at the moment, but it's not working because my disunity needs to cool down for a bit. But if I right click, then it actually uses it on myself, and that's just in case you want to protect yourself from whatever. Disclaimer though, it won't help if you're fighting an ogre, a brazen, a wither, or any of those creatures that break blocks. So disunity is a meter that appears every time you use a disunitive ability, and basically if you do that, then you have to wait for it to cool down entirely. So some disunity takes longer to cool down than others, so as you can see there, it barely fills up the bar, so I don't have to wait that long. But with the captive staff, I have to wait a little bit longer. You can see it fills up the bar a lot more, and so I have to wait longer. Now this is going to create lots and lots of potential for new potions and mobs. Imagine like a potion of disunity, one that decreases your disunity a lot faster than usual. Now imagine a mob that increases your disunity, so you have to resort to fighting with weapons. There's a lot of things that I can do with this bar, and I think that's really cool. And there is one more thing I want to mention about the staffs, and that is that they all have durability now. You notice that it's not appearing on the action bar anymore, and it can also be item specific. So if I were to use this, like so, then this is on 44 and this is on 47. Yes, it did just cost me 3 durability to use that. I can do that as well. This is all done with a generator, so I don't have to fuss too much, and let me get the commands up. Okay, so inside my functions folder, we have items, and the shadow staff is stored right here, and it's got a bunch of functions in here. The main, the left click ability and the durability. So let's take a look at the left click ability first, so you can see where it's setting my cooldown. These are all the commands that actually run its ability onto whatever has been hit. That's how I'm detecting it. And what it's doing here is it's running this durability command down the bottom here. Now the durability here is obviously generated with a generator because there's 200 lines of code here, one for my left hand, one for my right hand. Okay, which I probably don't even need because it's impossible to hit with your left hand, so I'll fix that. But anyway, it takes a look at the current durability of your staff, so if it's got a durability of 6, then it will replace your hand with something of a durability of 5, and it just basically keeps going on that at 100. The advantage of doing it this way as well is if I bring up my right click one, you can see that I've run that durability function 3 times, which means it will use 3 durability when you right click with it, and then 1 durability if you left click with it. So very powerful system, but I won't get into too much more detail just in case 1.13 changes everything, so don't think this is going to stay like this forever. Now this video is titled Boss Bar Madness, and the reason why I called it that is because of this thing up here. I had a lot of trouble trying to make this multiplayer compatible, and I even got some footage of the process that I went to try and figure out the solution to this. So enjoy the following clips. I have been experimenting with the boss bar, trying really hard to make this multiplayer compatible. So in single player, the boss bar is very useful, so let's just add one here. This is called example bar. Now this is going to be tracking my example score, so if I just update it with this command here, then it will just set to 0. But the maximum is 500, and if I set myself to the maximum and then update it, then you'll see the bar fills up. And if I set it to halfway, then you'll see it goes halfway. Now, if I were to put this onto a repeating command block, like that, then it will update as soon as I change the score. And that's how I wanted to create mana bars originally. So there would be a cooldown that's happening on an invisible score, and the bar will appear and your cooldown will decrease. Now that's great in single player, but in multiplayer we had some issues. But first I just want to look at the commands real quick. So when we add the bar, I'm just adding a bar called example bar, I'm setting the max value, setting its original value, and setting my score of example to 0. And then thanks to TriStar for providing this command for me. So what I'm doing here is I'm just basically storing the result of my score into the example bar, and then just making sure that I'm the one who sees that. So we're all on the same page so far, which is great. Now, I'm going to add a second player to the game, and we're going to see what that does. So I'm going to join in, and we have this issue. I'm going to set this player's example score to, I'll set this one to 250. And now let's go back to my main display. So as you can see, we have this issue here. My example bar here is flashing because it's constantly changing what player it's displaying for. And you might be saying, okay, that's because it's sending to a random player. But the issue is here, if I set it to all players, then it has no idea what to do. It's only displaying for the other person. And so you might think again, well, that's pretty easy to fix as well. All we have to do here is just change it so it displays for everyone. Okay, let's see what that does. So if I were to reload, you can see that even though my score is 500, the maximum value, because my alternate account has a value of 255, it's not displaying correctly. And the only way to actually get it to display correctly is by setting this to @s, coming back here, and making it so it displays for a different player every time. And oh, that's not even correct even. So we've got serious issues. Oh wait, reload. Okay, so it's displaying the correct result now. If I were to set my example score to 10, it's still displaying the correct result, but that flashing is so annoying. Believe it or not, I actually got this working. I'm going to set my example score to 500, which is half of 1,000, and that's just going to be constantly decreasing my cooldown score now. Notice how this didn't actually appear for my alternate account. So I'm going to set my alternate account's score of example to 200 there, or maybe 200 is a little bit close to my other score. But as you can see, I've got two boss bars going at once. Now these two are actually hard coded, and so you may be thinking, oh, but that means wouldn't there be a limit to how many players can join your server? After all, if you hard code 1,000 boss bars, then that means you can only have up to 1,000 players join your server, and then you won't be able to use it anymore. And that's sort of true, but not really. Let me explain. Essentially what I have created here are boss bars on demand. So this function here will run every time your example score is above 0. Okay, so what happens is, if you haven't found a boss bar yet, then it will check if anyone is using that bar, and if not, then go ahead. And you will get the found bar tag, and then you won't bother checking any of the rest. But if you weren't successful, because someone else is using it, then it will check the next one. And so what happens is, when one person is finished with the boss bar will actually get removed, and then that spot there will become vacant again. So essentially, it's boss bars on demand. So you can have 2,000 players running on your server, and as long as no more than 1,000 are using them all at once, then you're okay. So I just wanted to restate what I said there, because I think it's so crucial that everyone understands this. There's no ID system when it comes to this boss bar system that I've created here. If you have 10,000 players on your server, on your Tempest Box server or whatever, that's fine. as long as no more than 1,000 are using a spell at once. And the chances of that happening is so astronomically low, it's just not even worth considering. So yeah, it does mean I have to hard code 1,000 boss bars, but because I have a Java program to do it for me, I don't have to worry about writing 1,000 MC function files by hand. It's achievable. Hey guys, this time-lapse used to be an explanation on how I generated 1,000 MC function files with Java. I decided not to do that because I felt like it was way too boring. If, however, you think that that's something you'd be interested in anyway, then tomorrow I will release a bonus video to this video where I explain in detail how I generated the 1,000 boss bar functions. If you're a command block engineer yourself, then I highly recommend you learn how to use a programming language like Java, because that will open up so many options for you, and it will teach you a lot about how to use strings, and maybe one day you will be able to graduate from Minecraft and create your own apps. Wouldn't that be awesome? Just while you're all here, I'm going to answer some questions about TTB that I received on my questions card on Trello. I use paint.net to edit my textures, not to be confused with Microsoft Paint. Link in the description. I also use a plugin pack which helps me a lot, so I'll link that too. Disunity decreases per tick unless a mob has cursed you. You can actually decrease this faster using potions or other items which I have not added or planned yet. I will share my Java program on the 5th episode of the Tempest's box, I think, when it's matured a bit more. I will not make a new dimension for the same reason I didn't want Mojang to make one. It's just not worth the effort. For every one feature I add to a new dimension, I could have spent that same time adding 5 things to the Nether or the End. It's just better use of everyone's time if we just stick to the empty dimensions that we have at the moment. On the 1st of March, 30 selected people will beta test TTB 0.8. If you want to apply to be a beta tester, then join my Discord and I will let you know in the rules channel once I figure out the best way to approach the application process. Only 30 people can do it though, and they all must be willing to play TTB only to find as many bugs as possible. It will be completely unfinished, it will probably be laggy and buggy, but that's why we have beta testers to fix these problems early in the development process. I'm happy to say that the Amethyst Sun Panels are completed, but they haven't changed at all since last time, and I don't really feel like talking about them twice in a row, especially since I haven't really made any changes. Except now that you can put Volcanium inside it and, whoops, it's just funneling through. Okay, so you can put Volcanium inside it and that will reduce the chances of you getting gel. And you can put Amethyst inside and that will make the Amethyst Sun Panel trigger a little bit more frequently. Still needs daylight to run, nothing's changed there. And of course you can funnel the Tempite sludge, Tempite gel into here and then make this get powered. And yeah, it still gets cleared from your inventory if you were to try and pick up the Tempite gel. So nothing new there. Let's take a look at the Spirit Staff. Now, the Spirit Staff used to do a few things. It used to tell you what spirits were inside a Spirit Gem, and it also used to locate the Decree, and it also used to add Tempite to machines. So, very, very inconsistent stuff. I'm going to make it so this staff is purely for searching now. Particularly, guess what these are searching? So, we've got Volcanium this way. So, as you can see, we've got some Volcanium over here. And I had to cut because I ran out of breath. So, this will probably spawn in an ore vein as well, so very, very useful. And as you can see, the amethyst is going all the way over here as well. It's only got 24 durability, so that means you can only find 24 ore veins, which I think is plenty, only if you're efficient with it. Sometimes you may need multiple uses to see exactly where it's going, but if you're diligent, then you'll be able to find it in one go every time. It will still be used to find the bosses as well, because I think they're so important, they cannot be missed by the player. And they've got, well, I've already talked about that, 24 durability. So the way it actually works is pretty simple. It uses 1.13's new facing feature, where basically if I use this command here, I'm basically saying I want to teleport myself to the same location, but I want to be facing the nearest amethyst ore. That's what this is doing here. So no matter where I go, if I run this command, then I'll end up facing it. Now, if you were to combine that with 1.13's raycasting ability, like so, then as you can see, every time I run the command, I move closer towards it. So that's basically what these armor stands here are doing, just on a clock and moving them very, very gradually while emitting particles. Very simple. The update aquatic features are pretty cool, but I want to talk about them another time. I just want a specific interest in the trident, and more specifically its channeling ability, because it's very, very similar to how the Netherite staff works. So for those of you who are currently living under a rock, if I just set the weather to thunder and throw a channeling trident staff at it, then there we go. It will actually set the creeper on fire using thunder, which is very good if you want to find charged creepers, which is originally what the Netherite staff was supposed to do. And now we've got this cool trident here, and I want to use that, not the Netherite staff anymore. To be honest, I really love the idea of event-driven gameplay, so the event in this case being a thunderstorm, and the drive being, well, it's a thunderstorm now, I'm going to get my channeling trident and try and catch some creepers. I think that's just a really cool idea, rather than having a Netherite staff that you have on hand all the time. I think mechanically the trident is just much more interesting, and I think the Tempest's box can learn a thing or two from Mojang's design here. Now, the Netherite staff needs a new ability. I haven't thought of one yet. I'm thinking maybe some kind of homing ability, but if you have any suggestions for what the Netherite staff can do, then please leave them in the comments or on the card on Trello, and I will be sure to read them. Probably not have time to respond to them, but I will read them. Alright, let's fix this build. So, we'll start off immediately with the pressure plates. Those were not popular, so let's get rid of those. And the other thing that people were saying is that I used way too much chiseled sandstone, and yes, I agree. Someone even said that I should just mix and match all the chiseled sandstone and try and create some kind of pattern like that. So already, this is starting to look a little bit more detailed. You can see that this has actually given a little bit of dimension to the build there. So I will just bring this up like so, and put that there, and then put buttons like that, and I can see that that's already improved the build, and that was just me just messing around randomly. So when I click my fingers, I'll do that for the whole build. Alright, now let's add splashes of brown. The reason why I want brown and orangey is just because they're kind of neutral colors, and I think they would suit well with the desert. Now, I don't exactly know where I should put these, so let's just try a few things. See, that just pops out way too much compared to the sandstone there. So I'm going to have a little bit of difficulty deciding where I should actually include my highlights. So let's just look around and see if there's any particular walls that seem a bit flat. Alright, so this particular section here is very flat, and it does need a second color, I believe. So not really sure what to do here. This is where my building absolutely fails, is when I'm trying to add a second color here. So let's cut, and I'll figure it out off camera. I think that the orange terracotta and the concrete, they're all way too strong. You can see that that's a really harsh contrast between the sandstone and those blocks. So I think it might be best if I don't use it. Although the regular terracotta seems to be fine, so I'll try and incorporate more of that. I added these oak slabs here, and I think that creates a bit of contrast between the ground and the structure itself, so I think that's a little bit of an improvement. As for this side here, I might do the same like that. And yeah, it just adds a little bit of separation from the terrain and the structure itself. Alright, so now I've placed some oak slabs halfway up, kind of staggered them a bit, and also on the very top of the structures. So now there's two distinct, technically 5 distinct layers. So you've got the ground, and then it's divided by the oak, and so you've got this middle section here, divided by that, and you've got this top section here, and then you divide that again, and we've got the sky. So the oak planks are kind of acting like a divider to break everything up. And I do believe I should put some here like that. Yeah, I think that works. So I'll do that. If you don't like what I'm doing, then feel free to comment an alternative solution. I'm just doing the best I can at the moment. There we go. And so, yeah, it's starting to look less like a ruin, but I am going to go through with TNT when it spawns, basically. So every time it spawns, TNT will drop on it, and then that will make it look really ruined. We've also got these terracotta pillars in the middle. These are just because I think the pillars should be different colors from everything else. Just because it's the only way I can fit the contrast in there. I tried creating patterns on the wall, but it was just way too harsh. I think pillars are the best way to go around this. Speaking of structures, one of the biggest complaints I got with version 0.7 of the Tempest's box was that the ice structures were either too rare or too common or just plain bugged out. Now that's because back then in 1.12 the only technology I had to spawn the structures and make them seed specific was by using the blocks in the world to determine the structure. And that is seriously unreliable, but I didn't have much choice if I wanted to make it seed specific. So 1.13 has released now, and the new store and get commands allow me to track the X coordinate or the Y or the Z coordinate of any entity. And this is really powerful because now I can make seed specific structures by operating on the positions of the entities using a little bit of very simple maths. Notice, as I move around the world, this X score keeps changing. Now this isn't actually my X coordinate, so my X coordinate at the moment is the -206, but this says 7. And you'll notice if I just keep moving on and on and on until it reaches 200, it will reset. So let's just keep moving and, oh, bit of lag. There we go. So it reset at 200, and that is really powerful because now I can say, well, if a structure armor stand spawns here, if the ID is 42, then spawn structure number 42. Or maybe I can say, well, if it's a multiple of 7, then don't spawn anything at all because I don't want structures to appear that frequently. But all in all, it means I can fit up to 200 structures, that's just surface structures, mind you, into a single biome if I really wanted to. And then I can manipulate very intensely how often I want them to spawn. And the way it works is quite simple. So all I'm doing is adding an objective called X, and another one called 100, another one called -1, and then just setting those to appropriate scores. Now what I'm doing is I'm getting the X coordinate of the player using a position 0. See, if I were to set this to 1, then that will get the Y coordinate and this will get the Z coordinate. And I want it to round it to the nearest whole number. So that's pretty simple. And what I'm doing is I'm going to get X, and then I'm going to do a modular division and get the remainder of, well, this isn't 100 anymore. I decided to change it to 200. But if I set this to 100, then my X coordinate will be between 0 and 100. So pretty simple stuff. And then this will output a negative number. So I'm just inverting the polarity there. That's completely optional. So very simple maths if you know what's going on. And yeah, 1.13 is just awesome because of it. Sorry, my mistake. It won't always output a negative number. So I've just made it so if it does, then invert the polarity. You know, there's a lot of people in my comments section that just love to call me a genius or whatever, and that they could never have possibly thought up what I could do and they could never do what I can do, but I don't think that could be further from the truth. I don't think I'm a genius at all, and I think that myself as a person isn't exactly that much different from you watching right now. I think it all comes down to mindset, and I was reading this book here called The Idea in You, How to Find It and Build It, and it has this passage here about learning. It says here in this chapter, everything can be learned, but how do we access that faith? It's down to our mindset. Professor of Psychology at Stanford Carol Dweck has shown that there are two key mindsets people have when learning. First, there is what she calls a fixed mindset. People with a fixed mindset believe that their capability is static. They say things like, you've either got it or you haven't. To someone with a fixed mindset, you're either artistic, sporty, good at public speaking, good at driving, good with animals, or you're not. You're either a good creator or you're not. Professor Dweck has shown that, above all, people with a fixed mindset want to appear capable. They try to avoid appearing incompetent at all costs. For them, being not very good at something is a sign that they really shouldn't be doing it. They believe that incompetence is shameful, and they hate not knowing what they're doing, so they walk away. The great news is that changing your mindset is much easier than learning how to be good at everything. To succeed in this hero's journey, you must cultivate what Professor Dweck calls a growth mindset. With a growth mindset, you expect to find new tasks hard, and you do them anyway. With a growth mindset, you are not fixated on whether you will succeed or fail, you are focused on what you will learn.